Hi friends, this is Tracy from the Sewing Channel. Welcome back, and if you're new here, welcome. In today's tutorial, I have an amazing quilt block to share with you. And yes, pun was intended. Enough talking already. Let's get busy. For this particular block, you're going to need two separate strip sets. You'll need the two that are in the center to be the same in a light to medium color, contrasting your three strips that are more dominant, that are darker, that are on the ends and in the center. So all of the strips need to be about 10 to 12 inches or so in length. Now each one of these strips, they need to be 1¼ inches, and that's on every single strip. Now you can see here that I did fussy cut the strawberry row, the one that had the more dominant seeds on it, because I just thought that that would look a lot cuter on this block. So if you have a particular fabric that you would like to show up in that strip part to contrast around the maze, the block of the block, the square of the block, you can fussy cut however you see fit. I just suggest that it be in a continuous strip and not pieced together right in the center. I mean, you could if you had to, but it just looks better when it's not, because you're going to have a lot of other seams that go around in this square. We're just going to connect these here just like that with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, making one piece of fabric that has strawberry stripes in it. One tip that I definitely want to mention before we start sewing, when you add this first piece together, and say you start on this end and you do your 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down and you finish. Well, since you started at this end and you need to connect the next piece, say these are connected right there, and you started at this end to connect them, you want to add this one on and start at this end and sew. Now we do that because what happens if we were to start and end our seam in all the same places, we would end up with fabric that was tighter down here and have that all fanned out like that. And that's not going to be good when we go to piece everything together. So you want to sew down this seam allowance this way, and then connect these and sew down that way. When you get down to this end, turn it and sew down this end, and so on and so forth. So go ahead, sew those together, and I'll meet you right back here. This is what you should have so far. Two strip sets all sewn together with some strawberry stripes in the centers. Take note that I did iron open all of my seam allowances. Now you don't have to do that if you don't want to. It's up to you. You can iron your seam allowances any way that you'd like. Each of your strip sets should measure in at roughly approximately 4¼ inches. They should be at 4¼ inches, depending on how minimal or how much wider your 1/4 inch seam allowances are that you make on your sewing machine. The next thing you're going to need to do is cut out some white or low volume fabric that definitely contrast your colors that you picked out in your striped fabric. And white is great because there is white in the checkered here, so that's going to work for my block. These two pieces are cut at 4¼ inches in width. So what we're going to do is take and put right sides together. So this white piece also needs to be roughly the same length as your strip fabric and 4¼ inches in width. So you're going to put right sides together. And then the next thing we're going to do is take this over to our sewing machine, and we are going to make 2 tubes out of this fabric. The way we're going to do that is we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance right across the top, one right across the bottom there, and then on this one, and then on this one. So go ahead and do that, and then I will meet you right back here. This is what you should have right here. 2 strip sets with the white sewn onto it, and it looks like a tube. Now we have to cut these special, and let me show you why. Here's an example in the lobster red and the turquoise that I did earlier. This is the bottom half of the block. We want these to connect together in a way that they will go together. So we need to cut one color one way and the other color the other way so that they are mirror images of themselves. Otherwise, if we didn't cut them right, they would all be in this direction and we wouldn't be able to connect our block together. So the first one we're going to do is the red. I'm just going to cut some excess off that we had on the end there to give that a nice straight flush edge. So for the red block, this is the way I'm going to cut it. I'm going to turn the colored fabric facing up so that white is facing on my table. Then I'm going to measure in 4 1/4 inches because remember our width was 4 1/4 inches. Now as a side note, you can change this block to any size that you would like simply by changing the width of your strip sets. So if it was 5 inches in width, then you would come in 5 inches and make a 5-inch squared block. But we know that this is 4 1/4 inches. So what I'm going to do is come in 4 1/4 inches and I'm going to cut. So there's my 4 1/4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the quarter on the edge there. Make a slice and go ahead and make a slice. Now you should have some left. Set that aside. You're going to take these ones and just set them up here for a second. And I want you to go ahead and cut the next strip set. You're going to cut off the excess, but this time I want you to leave the white facing up. We're going to go 4 1/4 inches in and make a cut. We're going to go 4 1/4 inches in again to make our next block. And again, you will have some excess. Set that aside. The next thing I want you to do with these the way that they are, I want you to put a diagonal cut from corner to corner, just like this. You're going to do the same thing here with this one, but we're cutting it with the blue strips with the white facing up. And with the red is facing up. This is very important because we want our strip sets to fit nicely around our amazing block. So go corner to corner and slice. Go corner to corner and slice again. All of your cuts should be from left to right, left to right, left to right, left to right. The only difference is the blue fabric, the white was facing up when we cut it, and the red was facing up when we cut it. I do utilize the wooden clapper on these seams because it really does help these seams to lay nice and flat. The clapper is truly amazing and I do recommend it to everybody. Anybody who sews even just seams for garments or anything, this clapper is amazing. Let's see what we've got so far. Let me just show you how they are mirror images of each other. If you were to turn this one this way, you can see that this one is obviously on the opposite side. And that was why we turned it upside down. It's amazing how it changes just one turn like that. This is how we're going to put it all together. Take a blue and a red and line them up with the whites on the outside and the colors pointing toward the middle. So this is what we should have so far. Now the next thing we're going to do is sew these blocks together. So we're going to sew these two together, these two, these two, these two. Then we're going to sew these together and these together. And then finally we're going to sew the top and the bottom together. And when you sew these, you're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And when you put them together, be sure as they are going through the sewing machine that they are matching up perfectly at every single intersection. Do the best you can. Sometimes things get a little off, and the overall look of it will still be great, even if they're a little bit off. So go ahead and sew all these together, and then I'll meet you right back here. Before we put all of these 4 pieces together, I want to make sure that you know that you have to cut these blocks down. And how we're going to do that is line up the diagonal this way with the diagonal that's on your ruler. Each block is going to end up at 5 1/4 inches. Everything's all trimmed up, and then we are going to now sew these two together, 1/4 inch seam allowance, these two together, 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then we are going to sew everything up, and I'll be right back. And there you have it, this cute little amazing block. This block measures approximately, uncut, untrimmed, it's about 10 by 10, but once I trim it, it'll probably be just under that. I just love how this block comes together. It's unique and it's different. Until next time on the Sewing Channel, take care.